Hello everyone, good morning and welcome to today's The Hindu News Analysis. Myself Nitin K. Biju, I'll be appearing for the civil service interview this year. Coming to the contents page, today we'll be discussing about 8 important news articles covered in the Hindu newspaper today. Coming to the first page, the first headlines. Prime Minister announces rupees 10,000 crore aid for Bengal. The death toll touches 80 due to the Amphan cyclone. Mamta Banerjee and Prime Minister Modi undertake aerial survey of the Amphan hit area. So, along with Bengal receiving 1,000 crore, Odisha has also been given 500 crore to as a recovery from the Amphan cyclone. Also, in addition to this, rupees 2 lakh will be given from the Prime Minister's Relief Fund to the family of the deceased and rupees 5,000 50,000 each for the seriously injured. So here coming to the prelims perspective, we have to read about the formation of the tropical cyclones as well as the naming of the tropical cyclones. I'll just discuss these two aspects in briefly now. So coming to the formation of the cyclone, the cyclones are formed due to the formation of a low pressure area on the sea surface. When this low pressure happens, the air rises. When the air rises, low pressure happens and air influx happens from the surrounding regions. So, and due to Coriolis force, this will rotate. The air influx will rotate, creating the cyclone, right? So, this is about the formation of the cyclone. Due to the global warming, what happens is this cyclone intensifies. How it intensifies? Because due to warming up of the sea surfaces, the evaporation will be more, right? So, when the evaporation is more, the air rise will be more because warm air rises, right? So the rise of the warm air will be more, and thereby the low pressure also intensifies, which actually uh, uh, creates cyclones which are of high destruction potential, right? So that is all about the formation of the tropical cyclones. And coming to the naming of it, as of now 13 countries together name the cyclones. Earlier it was 8 countries. Those 8 countries are Thailand, Bangladesh, Myanmar, India, Sri Lanka, Oman, Pakistan, and Maldives. So earlier, these 8 countries used to name the cyclones, and this Amphan cyclone is named by Thailand. Thailand in 2004, in as early as in 2004 itself, the naming of the cyclone was done. Also now in 2018, this 8 countries, the list of 8 countries has been expanded to 5 more countries, including Yemen, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Qatar. So now these 13 countries are involved in naming of the cyclone in a rotation wise basis. Like if this year the cyclone is if this cyclone is named by Thailand, the next cyclone will be named by some other country. So in a rotational manner, the naming of the cyclone happens. So and one more thing which is important from the prelims perspective, these tropical cyclones are named known as known in different names in different parts of the world. For example, it is known as hurricane in Atlantic and parts of Pacific, and coming to South China Sea and all, it is called as typhoon. And coming to Australia and all, it's called as Willy Willy. So this uh, name, how the cyclone is known in different parts of the world, should also be learned from the prelims perspective. So that's how about this news. Coming to the second news article, RBI cuts repo rate again down to 4%. So why this has been done, we all know that the COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in low demand in the economy. So in for economic revival, the demand should be increased. How this demand can be increased? The demand can be increased when the people have money with them, when the people have the capacity to purchase, right? So how people can be given the capacity to purchase? One way of this is to enable more borrowing to the people, right? So to enable more borrowing to the people, what happens, the banks, if the banks reduce their interest rate, then people will borrow more, right? So how can RBI ensure the banks will reduce their interest rate? They can reduce the repo rate. So when repo rate is the rate at which RBI lends money to the Reserve Bank, I mean RBI lends money to the other banks, right? So if this repo rate is reduced, then the banks will lend more, thereby the people will be having more borrowing capacity, more money in their hands, thereby the demand of the economy will be increased, and thereby resulting into economic revival, right? So in order to boost the economy, the RBI has reduced the repo rate. Also, the central bank also extended the loan repayment moratorium for another 3 months till August 31st. So the loan repayment moratorium, it is actually the time when the interest should be paid, right? So it has been extended to August 31st. Also, this decision was taken by a six-member monetary policy committee. Now from the prelims perspective, you have to learn about the basics of this monetary policy committee. So earlier, what used to happen? Earlier, the Reserve Bank governor, you alone used to decide on the repo rate and all, right? So what happened? The government felt that there should be a committee, and not the Reserve Bank governor alone to for deciding the repo rates and all. So what happened is, after negotiations with the RBI, a monetary policy committee was formed. There are six members in the monetary policy committee. Three of them are from the RBI, and three of them are appointed by the uh, government. And the RBI governor is the ex officio chairman of the monetary policy committee, and he has a casting vote. Casting vote means if there is a tie in the votes, then the RBI chairman can RBI governor can vote. So that is all about and it is formed by uh, recommendations of the Urjit Patel committee. So these facts about monetary policy is very important from the prelims perspective. So please go through that. Now coming to the third article, Maharashtra pushes India's tally to record 6,510 cases. So the Maharashtra state has recorded 2,940 new cases, and the countrywide death toll rises by 148. So as of now, the total of 1,24,525 confirmed cases are there, with 69,140 active infections and 51,666 recoveries has taken place, and the fatalities have increased by 148 to take the total death toll to 3,720. And coming to the recovery rate and the doubling rate, the recovery rate is above 40% and the doubling rate is 13 days as of now. Also, 80% of the active cases are found in 5 states. Which are all those states? Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Delhi, Gujarat, and Madhya Pradesh. And among this, around 60% of the cases are in 5 cities, which includes Mumbai, Delhi, and Ahmedabad. Okay. So that is all about the coronavirus related news. Coming to the next important news article, India reaches out to Pakistan to fight the locust. So, what are these locusts? Locusts are this. They are short-horned grasshopper. They look like grasshopper, but the horns are very short compared to the grasshoppers. So, if as an individual, it is fine. It doesn't do much damage. But when it comes in a group, the group of locusts are called as swarm. Okay, when a swarm of locusts comes, it creates big issue for the food security. What happens is, this locust, I'll give an example. I will give a statistics to tell the extent of damage created by this locust. One swarm of locust, which comes to around 1 kilometer, 1 square kilometer in area. So that is a group of and even that is called as a small swarm of locust. So one small swarm of locust can eat the same amount of food which 35,000 people can eat in a single day. So this is the extent of damage which a group of locusts can cause. So this is a big concern for the food security, right? Because first of all, this swarm of locusts, they can travel a lot in a day. Like they travel even more than 150 kilometers in a single day. So traveling for so much, and they have high reproductive rates also. They reproduce very fast. So high traveling distances, high reproductive rate, plus this much amount of eating destruction caused to farmlands, it can result in food security issues in the areas where they move, right? So that is why it is a concern for areas like, especially like the Horn of Africa, areas of Somalia and all. From there they move to Iran, Pakistan, and come to India. So this is an issue for all these countries. Like, so that is the necessity of a coordinated response between all these countries. So India has reached out to Pakistan to counter a locust invasion which threatens to destroy crops and undermine food security in South and Southwest Asia. So India, as of now, India has proposed a trilateral response in partnership with Pakistan and Iran to combat the desert locust wave. So that is all about the first page headlines. Now coming to the main article of the day, lower the temperature, diffuse the issue. The article is about the relationship between India and Nepal, where Nepal is showing more aggression in the recent times. So this is important for prelims perspective. One is the map, the border dispute related to India and Nepal. And coming to GS2, the dispute under international relations, this becomes very important between India and Nepal. And coming to interview, you might be asked what should be Indian government's response to the increased aggression by Nepal. So these stuff should be learned from all the perspective of prelims, mains, and interview. Now, coming to the article, what is the start of this issue? One is the main start of this issue is that the Defense Minister Rajnath Singh has inaugurated a road from Darchula to Lipu Lake, that is in the Indian territory near to the China-Nepal border. Okay, so Lipu Lake is a tri-junction between India, Nepal, and China. So India has inaugurated a road, and now this has been followed by Nepal's charge, claiming that the road stretch passes through Nepal territory, but it is not, right. So explaining Nepal's stand, so why Nepal has started this aggression, one explanation can be given it can be the Nepal Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli's it might have given in an opportunity to hide his government's incompetence and failure to meet the basic needs of his people, and even to divert the attention away from the rising tide of opposition from within his own party. So it can be a political tactic by the Nepal Prime Minister. Also, the issue has made more complicated by when Nepal released a map telling that areas of Kalapani, Lipulek, and Lipiandura. So these are three areas which Nepal claimed to be as their own, right? So this map said that these three areas belong to Nepal, where but as of now these are coming under India. Now Nepal has cited a Sigoli Treaty, right? So what is the Sigoli Treaty? Sigoli Treaty is a treaty between erstwhile British India and the Nepalese kingdom, which happened in 1816 after the Anglo-Nepal Wars. So Nepal lost the Anglo-Nepal Wars, and the resulting treaty limited Nepal to its present territories. So earlier Nepal ranged from River Sutlej to River Teesta, but as of now Nepal is limited to from River Kali to River Teesta, right? So the remaining area, the parts of Uttarakhand, that is the Garhwal, Kumaon, and all. So these areas were ceded to India after this Sigoli Treaty. Now, uh, also as of now, Nepal starts from the west of River Kali as of now. Now, the present controversy has arisen since the Nepal contest that the tributary that joins the Mahakali River at Kalapani is not the Kali River. Nepal now contends that the Kali River lies further west to the Libulek Pass. So Nepal is telling that the present demarcation of the Kali River is not exactly Kali River, but that is just a tributary, and the Kali River is actually still west to Lipu Lake. So that is the basis on which Nepal is claiming areas like Kalapani, Lipu Lake, and Lipiandura, right? Now, coming to the historical aspect, the British used the Lipu Lake Pass for trade with Tibet and China. The Survey of India map since 1870s showed the area of Lipu Lake down to Kalapani as part of British India. Both the Rana rulers of Nepal and the Nepalese kings accepted the boundary and did not raise any objection with the government of India even after the India's independence. Now, as a reward for the military help rendered by Jang Bahadur Rana in quelling the 1857 uprising, that is the first war of independence, right? The areas of Nepalganj and Kapilvastu were given back to Nepal soon after 1857, but still the British did not return any part of Garhwal or Kumaon, that is the present parts of Uttarakhand, right? Including the Kalapani area to Nepal. So even though after 1857 the British had given back some of the areas which it had captured through the Treaty of Sigoli, these areas of Kalapani and all were not given back to Nepal. Now, what can be the way forward? See, there is an Nepal India technical level joint boundary working group. It was set up in 1981 to resolve the boundary issues, right? Also, 98% of the boundary issues have been solved, right? 98% of the boundary except the two disputed areas, so the present one Kalapani and another area called Susta. So except these two areas, there is no boundary issue between India and Nepal. So when 98% of the boundary issues were solved, Nepal should not have done such an aggression, right? So these two areas should also have been the disputed areas should have been resolved through talks only. The remaining issues concerning the boundary are not difficult to resolve unless they are caught up in domestic or international concerns, right? So India successfully resolved far more intractable border issues with Bangladesh not so long ago, covering both the land and maritime boundaries. So we all know the agreement between India and Nepal, right? There was a India Bangladesh land boundary agreement and all. So India has solved bigger issues. So this was not a big issue. We should not have allowed this to escalate. Now compared to what was accomplished between India and Bangladesh, the India-Nepal border issues appear more easily solvable, so long as there is a political goodwill and statecraft exercised on both the sides. Also, India and Nepal ties are very unique, right? So India has agreed, like Jawaharlal Nehru wrote in the Discovery of India, also in the Glimpses of World History, that Nepal has been only the truly independent country of South Asia, and India knows how Nepalis have the conscience of self-respect and the pride of Nepalese people, right? And Nepal in turn has also in the past responded to India's needs as a friendly neighbor. Its political leaders contributed to India's struggle for freedom also. Also, we know that there are people to people ties. The people to people relation between India and Nepal is unmatched. So there is some kind of an open boundary agreement and all, right? So, given the friendly relations between India and Nepal, this issue should not have been escalated. Also, the official spokesperson of the India Ministry of External Affairs, Anurag Srivastava, had said recently that India and Nepal have an established mechanism to deal with all boundary matters. So the best is to activate the existing mechanisms as soon as possible before any damage is further being done. The more the trouble festers, those who stand to gain by deteriorating Nepal India relations will benefit. That is China. China is trying to make inroads into Nepal as of now. So there is a need for the two countries to lower the temperature and defuse the issue. They must invest time and effort to find a solution. Raking up the public controversy can only be counterproductive to the relationship between India and Nepal. So that is what the article talks about. Now coming to the editorial, also it talks about India-Nepal relationships again. So we have already discussed this, so I won't be repeating this. I'll just go through the keywords here. So the main issue is the Kalapani territorial issue. So what it started with the inauguration of a motorable road to Libulek Pass. We already discussed it by Defense Minister Rajnath Singh. So this pass was used by pilgrims to travel to the Kailash Mansarovar, right? So this motorable pass, it will help the pilgrims to reduce the traveling time by around 3 days. So that is very important coming to India's importance, right? So the road built for now follows the same alignment and would essentially cut down their travel time by 3 days each way. The Nepali cabinet decision to adopt a new political map not only claims Lipulek but also other areas. So which were those other areas? Lipulek, Kalapani and Lipiandura, right? So in also the other issues are happening between India and Nepal. The Nepalese Prime Minister has told that Indian virus looks more lethal than that one from China. So this is a very hurting comment from the Nepalese Prime Minister. Also, the Indian Army Chief also contended that Nepal raised the disputes on the behest of an external force, namely China. Although this is right, although China plays a major role in the issue between India and Nepal, but we should not have openly admitted it, right? We should have tried to resolve the issues in a bilateral manner. So, boundary disputes are common ground for countries that have an ancient history and shared borders. Anyway, given the importance of the ties with Nepal, often romanticized as roti beti, India-Nepal ties are often it is said to be roti beti relationship, right? So India must not delay dealing with the matter, and at the time when it already has its hands full with the pandemic and a face off with China and Ladakh and Sikkim. We have already seen that we have issues between India and China, border issues which are happening in Ladakh around Pangong Tso Lake, as well as in Sikkim, that is the Nakula Pass. So when these issues were already there, we can't afford another issue, and that to a small issue with Nepal. It shouldn't escalate much, right? Now coming to the map of the area, so here you can see that this is the area, the squared, that is the area where the area of dispute between India and Nepal, and the remaining area has clearly been demarcated. There's no issue between India and Nepal apart from the Skalapani and Susta dispute. Okay, so this is the area. So you can see that Lipuleg is written here, Kalapan is written here, and Limpiatura is written here. In the new political map of Nepal, this orange area as well as this green area belongs to Nepal, whereas this green area actually belongs to India. So this is the disputed area which is happening between this green area is the disputed area between India and Nepal, and the areas which Nepal have claimed are Lipulekh, Kalapani, and Limpiadura. So this should be by heart. Now coming to the next article, notes on a digital currency plan made in China. So this is related to a new digital currency, the first digital currency in the world uh, which a country adopts. So that is by China, and we'll be discussing about this digital currency in this present article. And this is important from the prelims perspective. You have to learn about cryptocurrencies, digital currencies, Facebook's Libra, China's central bank digital currency, etc. And coming to GS3, the future it comes under GS3 under one is economy, then it comes under technology also, the digital currency and all comes under technology, and it comes under cyber security also. So this article is important from many topics under many topics in GS3. And coming to interview perspective, we should be learning about what should be India's take on this digital currencies. Okay, coming to the article, while the world is grappling with the fallout of COVID 19 and speculating on how far China can be blamed for the pandemic, a silent digital revolution is taking place in China. So, the press release of China, they have a plan, FinTech Development Plan 2019-21. Under this, the People's Bank of China has started a pilot project, and this pilot project has been expanded as of now. So, it is about the China's central bank's digital currency, or it is also called as CBDC. It is also questioned as the digital currency electronic payment, DCEP. Okay, so it is available via a mobile wallet app, and it is pegged at 1:1 ratio with the fiat currency. Fiat currency is the paper currency. Okay, so it has equal value as the paper currency, right? Now, this is the first such serious initiative in the whole world. Historically, what used to happen? Monetary authorities everywhere had been skeptical of the cryptocurrencies. Why? Why this is so? Because while fluctuations in the value of the currency used to happen, also the implied challenge to the monopoly of the central banks in issuing the fiat currencies, the looming possibility of software bugs, and the tainted shadow of the dark web have all been responsible for the unwelcome reception. So this cryptocurrencies and digital currencies had faced many issues, and these are the issues which have been discussed already, right? Now, coming to why the Chinese have done this, Chinese investors, however, were always enamored of cryptocurrencies. They liked cryptocurrencies more. And why? And this bitcoins became increasingly popular in the Chinese market, which can be seen from a statistics. China has emerged as the capital of the crypto ecosystem, accounting for nearly 90% of the trading volumes and hosting two-thirds of the Bitcoin mining operations. So we can already see that Bitcoin and this cryptocurrency were already prevalent in China, but not by the government, but by the uh, others, right? So the People's Bank of China, they tried hard to curtail this uh, exuberance of the cryptocurrency, but achieved limited success. In 2017, the Chinese cabinet approved the People's Bank of China's own digital currency development program. So the philosophy behind it is, if you cannot beat them, then join them. So that is what the Chinese bank has done. Earlier they tried to beat the cryptocurrency, but they were unsuccessful. Now what the Chinese government has decided, okay fine, we are not able to beat them, we'll also start our own cryptocurrency, we'll also start our own digital currency, right? So coming to the advantages, there are some advantages we have already discuss. So there are some advantages related to cryptocurrency. One is the paper money comes with a high handling charges and eats up to 1% to 2% of the GDP. So this amount can be saved through digital currency. Second is tax evasion, money laundering, and terrorist financing can be reduced during this digital currencies. Now, third, it can be used as a tool of financial inclusion, particularly in emergencies, for example, in direct benefit transfers and all. It can be instantly delivered by state authorities deep into rural areas directly into the mobile wallet of the citizen. So this financial inclusion can happen. The leakages and all can be avoided using this digital currencies. In the long term, in the long run, it is believed that CBDC, that is China central bank's digital currency, will make cross-border payments also fast and frictionless. So there are definitely many advantages of digital currencies also. But along with other disadvantages, there is another concern: the relentless rise of a surveillance state and the concomitant erosion of citizen privacy and anonymity. If face recognition technology enables states to spy on the physical movement of the citizens, will CBDCs be used to spy on every movement of the money? So the money transactions will not be private as of now. So that is the privacy related concern. Now, coming to the signals from the move, China might be targeting many things when they are announcing this digital currency. One is to fight against the hegemony of the US dollars. One can be that. Second can be to fight against the increased use of Facebook's digital currency. It is also called as Libra. Okay, so this has to be remembered from the present perspective. What is Libra? It is the Facebook's digital currency, right? Uh, Also, it tries to tackle Alipay and WeChat Pay. They are also gigantic fintech duopolies that control 90% of the China's domestic digital payment market. So in order to counter this and to get a more share of the digital currency market, China is trying to bring this cryptocurrency. Anyway, we can see that the currencies have moved from gold, then to silver, then to paper. Now it is moving to digital, right? So the march of the currencies goes on. So that is all about this news article. Now coming to the next article, China seeks India's support for legislation. So legislation, we have already discussed in the yesterday's article that China is planning to bring a new legislation to control the pro-democratic protests in the Hong Kong, right? So we all know that yesterday we have already discussed that Hong Kong was a British territory until 1997, and in 1997 Hong Kong was handed over to uh, China, but Hong Kong has a bit more independence compared to other territories of China. Hong Kong has its own legislature and all, and also it is the one of the financial capitals of the world, right? So now, due to Chinese policies, there have been many protests in Hong Kong against the anti-democratic stand by China, whereas Hong Kong wants more democratic policies, right? So China is trying to control it, and now China is planning to bring a new legislation to curb this protest in Hong Kong. It is despite the fact that, in spite of the fact that Hong Kong has its own legislature, right? So in spite of this, China is planning to make its own law. So this is a area of concern. Now, China has sought the support and understanding of India and other countries for its controversial decision to impose a new national security law on Hong Kong, saying that the new draft legislation is aimed at containing the secessionist forces in the former British colony who have posed a grave threat to the country's national security and sovereignty. So this is what China says. In an apparent move to blunt any international backlash, China has sent demarches to India and other countries, explaining the reason for the draft legislation with a reminder that upholding national security in the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region is purely China's internal affairs, and no foreign country can interfere in this matter. So China doesn't want any other country to raise any issue, any opposition to this law in any international fora, right? So that's why China is trying to get support from other countries, including India. So you can just read about the history of Hong Kong briefly, how Hong Kong became a part of China. Before that, what was the situation of Hong Kong, etc. Okay. Now, coming to the other articles, you can read about locust swarm attack crops in Madhya Pradesh, page 11. So we have already briefly discussed about the locust swarm attacks in the first page article. You can read about it in page 11. So that's all for today's news articles. I hope you like the video. Please press the like button, subscribe to the channel. Also share the video with your friends. Have a great day. Thank you.